Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hi, this is Jan Lewis, and welcome to be my guest. We are back today from our holiday vacation. It is now January, is it the 10th today?
9th.
The 9th. Aha, I skipped one. And our first guest of this year, a lot of you may remember him, and he's very much with us. This is Daniel Finn, and he was the former owner, head pharmacist, of Finn's Pharmacy over in South Grafton, right on Route 122. I remember it well. And his dad was the founder, right?
That's correct.
His dad. Now, he also, Finn's has closed, but he is also a consultant if you have questions, right? FINNRX LLC. And he's going to tell you what that all means. First of all, Dan, how did you get into farming? What was your interest?
Well, we can go back a little bit historically. My dad was a pharmacist mate in the Navy. He got out and worked for Charlie Lynch, who had 6 stores in the Blackstone Valley. And with the idea that if he built up that business in Northbridge, it was called Village Drugs, that he would get a shot to buy one of the stores. And it was a little bit of a catch-22 because he built it up to the point where he couldn't afford to buy that one, so then he bought one that was a little more in disrepair in Farnhamsville, which is South Grafton.
Yeah.
And but anyway, they all had soda fountains, and those were the good days when there was more competition on the soda fountain level of who had the better Lime Ricky or Frap or the best ice cream cone for 15 cents. And that's when I started working at this pharmacy. It was across from J.J. O'Donnell's. It was open for the beginning of the shift in the morning at 7 till 11:30 at night to help service coffee and everything for the workers in the mill. But on the soda fountain in high school, I worked there, and of course everybody would come up to me and say, "Gee, are you going to follow in your father's footsteps?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Absolutely not." I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I'm not going to become...
And you went to Northbridge High.
I went to Northbridge High.
Okay.
And I said, but I know I'm not going to be a pharmacist in a small town.
Oh.
But it's funny how
Yeah.
fate changes.
What made you change?
I went to Stonehill College for 2 years and played basketball and took some biology courses. And, after realizing I wasn't going to make the Boston Celtics, I got realistic about working, and I realized that I really did like to help people.
Where'd you go to college, pharmaceutical school?
To Massachusetts College of Pharmacy in Boston.
Okay, the one over in Worcester's terrific now, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We see a lot of those over at UMass. They've got the little white coat there.
Sure.
Oh, it's great.
It's big, and they have a campus in Manchester, New Hampshire as well.
How long did you have to go?
Ours was a 5-year. Now it's 6 years to get a bachelor's degree, but actually everyone now is getting a PharmD, a doctor of pharmacy, so it's 6 years.
And yours was 4 years?
Ours was 5. I transferred some credits, so it took me like 5.5 or whatever from Stonehill. But,
Sounds almost like getting a medical degree.
And especially now, it's very intense, and the clinical aspect is.
Do you have sons and daughters who are interested in it?
I do not. I have one daughter, but she said, "Dad, I'm sorry, I don't think I said."
Nope.
I said, "That's quite all right." And anyway, she's doing well.
Now, you know what? Dan has a column in the, let's see, which one are you? Are you in the...
The Grafton News.
Yeah, okay, he's in the Grafton News. Comes out every Thursday. And I found his column. It's there every week. And I love, it's like blood pressure at home, right? Do you know how much those cost? My doctor said, "Why don't you get one?" I'm like...
Well, they're not that outrageous. I think they're under $50 now. But the very good ones are closer to 100.
Yeah, but do you think they're good enough?
I think they're good. I think it's good to check your blood pressure at home, certainly, and I think everybody has a little bit of white coat syndrome where your blood pressure goes up when the doctor's taking it, or if you're under stress. So it's good to take it when you're at home and relaxed, and keep a record of that so you can bring it to the doctor's office.
We can't figure it out because at our primary care in Westboro, part of UMass, it goes up like 20 points up. Over at UMass, you're also seeing a doctor. Are they using a phony machine over at the other one or what?
No, I don't think so. There's a variety of factors that can affect it by 10 to 20 points, both systolic and diastolic. I mean, for instance, if you're not sitting like this, if you have your legs crossed, if you're in pain, a variety of other things can cause an increase. If they take your blood pressure with your arm at about your heart's level, as opposed if you have it up here, it's going to be low. If you have it down here, it's going to be high by 10 points. So there's a lot of variables.
So, okay. And I notice I'll tell the nurse, I'll say, why don't you just wait till the end and you watch.
Well, a lot of them do that now. They'll check it when you first come in, and then sure enough, after you relax for a little bit and realize you don't have any major problems or whatever the appointment
But
might be
scared the hell
for.
out of me one time. I'm like, how can it be 118 over at UMass and 150 at your primary care?
Well, at upper level, the systolic can bump up quite a bit with stress. You know, I don't know how the traffic was getting there, if you were late or whatever, but just that amount of stress can bump up that upper level. The lower, the diastolic, the lower of the two readings is a little more indicative of your circulatory system.
I know if I talk to somebody, I don't know why, it comes down.
Yeah.
My husband was in agony. He was in the ER recently. 118. Mine probably would have been like 160.
Right.
I don't know how it stays. Now, he has brought many things to show us. First of all, this was in the original pharmacy your father founded.
Right. It's a mortar and pestle, they call it, obviously. And it's an antique showpiece. Actually, they probably did use it, looks like,
Yeah.
at one time. To crush. At that time, there were so many, even in the 50s when he started, there were so many more compounded medications and creams and ointments and liquids, probably 50%, and then gradually, commercialization and the pharmaceutical companies got more into manufacturing mass quantities.
When Dan brought this in, that was when you had the pharmacy. It was up on.
Oh, yeah.
I remember
Right.
this.
Yeah, it became a display piece and a symbol of the practice of professional pharmacy.
Now he also brought. Well, this is his dad. What was your dad's full name?
Edwin A. Finn.
Edward Finn, and he's the founder. He was the original founder of Finn's Pharmacy over in Grafton.
Right, in 1953,
You weren't even born yet.
I was born that year. So
In 53?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have two older sisters and one younger brother.
Yeah.
And I guess I can hold
Yeah,
that
there you
over
go.
here. And this was outside of the newer Finn's Pharmacy building. We started out my dad started out down the street. When I graduated from college in 1977, we moved up.
He's got you.
We
A
moved
little bit up.
There we go.
That's his dad, founder of Finn's Pharmacy.
So we moved up the street to the former catering furniture
Yeah.
building. That's what this is here.
And that's where the Grafton cable channel is, right? And still
That's right.
behind there.
Right. Yep.
I used to work there. And then there's a linen building.
Yep. That's correct. It's Elegant Linens, I believe.
Now, let's show that. This is the original one when your dad. No, wait a minute. Wascanock and Farns. Is that
Right.
it?
This is the building. This was in 1911, so
Yeah.
my dad was not around actually, but historically, this was the Farmersville Pharmacy. There's a post office right beside it. And this was the building that my dad moved his business from Northbridge in 1953 to this location.
So that was a big year in your family. He started the pharmacy, and you were born.
Right? Yep.
Were you the oldest?
Third.
Third.
Two older sisters.
Of 4 children.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Your dad had his hands full.
Well, and my mom, obviously, and
Yeah?
she pretty much was at home taking care of us and running us around eventually to scouting events and sporting events.
Now, what is this one? Show us this one, Dan.
This one is that same building, but again, years later. And this was, in fact, in the early 60s, I believe.
You hadn't taken it over yet. No, you hadn't even gotten out of college.
No, but I worked on the soda fountain here at this
Yeah.
one.
How old were you when you did the soda fountain?
Oh, 16, 17,
Pretty cool.
18.
Did you like it?
I did. And that's, again, those were the days when I graduated in 1977, actually, there were 18 independent pharmacies just in the Blackstone Valley. So every town had at least one, and typically 2 or 3. Whitensville had 3. And everybody seemed to get along. And the soda fountains, again, there was more competition as to who had the best soda fountain service. Professionally, everyone got along. There wasn't the competitiveness of trying to garner more customers. But if we were out of a medication, for instance, somebody needed it right away or whatever, we would call Woods Pharmacy
Yeah.
or Grafton Pharmacy in the center
Yeah.
and try to find it for the folks. Sometimes we'd go get it, and sometimes the people would go up there.
What was the one in? I lived in Whitensville for years. What was that one?
There were three. There was Flag's Pharmacy,
Yeah, Flag.
which
Spider Flag ran it. Remember?
Spider, yeah, yep. And they closed about when we did. Again, 18 independents in 77, so in 1998 we closed, and Flags closed about that time as well, but we're the last two survivors of those 18.
You were, yeah. Definitely.
But there was Flags Pharmacy,
Yeah.
closest to the town hall, and then Buffum's Drug
Buffum's.
with Walter Sharawara,
Yeah.
and then further up Lynch's Pharmacy was one of Charlie Lynch's.
Who went down first?
Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah.
But, and again, everyone thinks, and to some extent it was the competition of the big chain stores, but also it was the HMOs and the type of insurance that came around that had contracts, and they kept sort of whittling down the profitability or reimbursements to the point where we just couldn't sustain the other services we had too, of charging and delivering and the other things that we did that the chains didn't.
Well, I heard recently that, well, I'm not going to mention names, but one of the big chain stores had decided to deny mass health patients. Well, what they did is they basically threw business to the other company. I'm like, well, shame on you, but still the other company is going to be right there. I don't understand their reasoning.
Yeah, the competition is very difficult. And again, there's so many contracts, different pricing. There are PPOs, which are preferred provider organizations, and they dictate what the pricing is and who they will contract with. So it's gotten very competitive and very businesslike.
Very, yeah.
You know.
You brought a book. Tell us about the story about your pharmacy in the book it's one of the Grafton Chronicles, right?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a second history of Grafton, and it was put together by Jane Carroll Wilson and Joe Curis.
Let's hold up.
And
There you go.
and so this picked up where the old Grafton history book left off in perhaps the 30s. And again, there's a lot of history since the 1930s, so they captured everything. But they did, in fact, have each of the pharmacies in Grafton, including College Circle Pharmacy in North Grafton, Rossetti's Grafton Pharmacy, and then Finn's Pharmacy here. And there's a picture of my dad and I about 40 years ago or something.
When did your dad retire from that?
You know, I'm not so sure he ever retired.
Did he ever retire?
No. And I mean, when I got out of college, he said, look, I'd like you to become manager.
Uh-oh.
I'll be happy to wash the windows, do deliveries, work on Sundays for you, but I'm ready to slow down a little bit. So, but
That early?
yeah, so he did that another 25 years or
Yeah.
so, and it was certainly a big help. And he was so well known in the neighborhood. He was sort of the proverbial tough act to follow, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You are running a business now. This is fascinating. FNRX LLC. What is that? I think this is it right here in your
That's right.
concierge pharmacy plan.
Right. And I realized the need for this actually when my dad and mom were in assisted living, and they had some questions about their medications and whether they missed a dose or took 2 doses of something or whatever. You know, they had questions, and there were some people there who could help to answer those questions, but calling the pharmacies were so busy and didn't know the whole picture of what they were taking. And then they'd say, call their doctor, and the doctors were busy. So I kind of saw a need for to get back to individual personal attention with medications. And
Medication reconciliation and review within 24 to 48 hours of your return to your home from the hospital or rehab center.
Yep.
Education and advice on your new medications. Who better? A pharmacist. You were in business for how many years?
overall, about 48 years, the whole business. And I was
48
there. I
years.
was there.
I mean, practically a doctor.
Not necessarily, but there's a lot of practical things and experience that I think I picked up along the way. You know, if somebody missed a dose of a cholesterol medication or forget to take it on a weekend trip, it's not that critical to miss a few doses of that, whereas if it were, a heart medication or a blood thinner or something, it is important to get a hold of that somehow.
What was it like if you had a customer, a regular customer, and you know them very well, you had it right there what they were taking, but the doctor or maybe a new doctor prescribed something that you could like, whoops, who did you let know first, the doctor or the patient, before you filled it?
Oh, typically the doctors, we would, try to get in touch with them and double check and have some references available as to why it might be an interaction or an issue.
Did they give you a hard time, or did they listen to you?
No, they've always been very open to that type of collaboration,
Yeah, and that's, thank God, before it hit the customer,
Right.
You were right there.
Yeah.
And that includes 3, 10, and 30-day follow-up meetings with you, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So again, it gets back to that personal attention, and I mean, initially, a lot of this is based on MTM, which is medication therapy management, and that is doing a thorough assessment of people's medication, educating them and advising them when to take it, what to take it with, and then if there seems to be issues, to talk to the patient, their caregiver, their medical team to see if you can resolve the issues. Mm-hmm. And also looking at their insurances, they're very complicated these days, so I'm able to sort of save people money by streamlining some insurance.
I think side effects, that's been probably prominent. If I'm ever given something, I want to know right off. Mm-hmm. Doctor may not, but the pharmacist.
Yes, and it's by regulation, the pharmacist has to also dispense with the prescription a list of side effects. Sometimes they're on the prescription label, but a lot of people just toss that out, and it's not till they get home and realize that something might either interact or have a side effect, and that's when I would get a call.
What's it like when they called you and they say, Mr. Finn, I'm having a creepy reaction to this drug. What was your next step? Or would it be now with your business?
With the business, if I didn't know their whole profile of medications and their illnesses, it would be very difficult. I could give them a general answer and say it's possible that could happen, but typically when I sign somebody up to this service, I'll print out a list of their medications.
Oh, how great is, look at that. He prints out the whole thing for you.
And that basically, has the indication when they should take it, what they should not take it with, and I also print out on my business card. It actually has lots of information about allergies, medical conditions, the prescriptions that they take, and then contact information between a doctor, a caregiver, in case of emergency. So you can have one of those.
Thank you. Be sure you've got extra ones. Put them up on the bulletin boards downstairs at the Upton, because we always encourage guests. You'll see a lot of the things up there are from guests from the program. How do they get a hold of you, Dan?
Just want to mention there's actually a method to this, a marketing method, because once somebody fills this out for themselves, they're not going to throw my business card away with all their personal information.
They're not.
So it's going to be in their wallet for a while.
How can they reach you?
They can reach me at danfinnrx@gmail.com, or my phone number is 508-887-6262.
Now, if they want a consultation, how does that work? They call you first? Or?
Yes, typically, and for the past 2 years, I've been dealing quite a bit with independent living facilities and independent folks, and going in and explaining what I do. But it's also the children of these seniors that are concerned about their parents taking too many medications.
We boomers are worried. I was worried about my father.
And so I've tweaked my marketing a little bit, and through the Grafton News and various publications, I just started trying some social media, which is a little out of my comfort zone, but from a marketing standpoint, to get my information out there, I think it's going to work to get to my old classmates and people my age.
Sure.
But anyway, so if they call me, contact me, and I offer, a free initial consultation, a complimentary, just to get a look at their medications. I have to have them sign a HIPAA form saying that it's okay for me to look at it, and that I won't share it with anyone. But just at a glance, I can pretty much tell them, or tell if I can help them by minimizing things, and then from there I would do a more
The second post-assessment meeting.
right.
How often can you meet with them?
Typically once a month,
Oh, that's great.
either
Yeah.
personally. After a while, it might be every other month. I'd contact them by phone or text or something. But most of my clients I see once a month.
So you actually synchronize this with healthcare professionals and pharmacies.
Right. And when people take a lot of medications, and of course it's typically a son or a daughter or a caregiver that sets their meds up for 2 weeks or a month.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But it's very difficult to get the pharmacies, and they might get medication from 2 or 3 sources. To get them all a supply to put a month together, for instance. So I can interact with the clients, or okay, to contact the pharmacy and say, can we, for instance, go with 2 months this refill, and then that will get that in line with the 3 months of everything else. And I also encourage people to get their medications from a maximum of 2 sources, as opposed to trying to get the best price at several different places.
Yeah, don't shop around too much.
Not too much.
Not too much. My father could have used you. I know when he was taking care of Mom, in the kitchen. Oh, Dan seems like a very precise person, and Dad was like that. He had a whole agenda written down, when she was supposed to take this thing.
Yeah.
Did you ever notice that a lot of the caregivers, unfortunately, if they don't take care of themselves, he went down before she did. Taking care of her, he burned out.
Right. It's a lot of responsibility, and it's a lot of worry.
But he didn't want anyone else to help him.
Right.
In that generation there,
Right.
God bless them. They,
Yeah, and that's where I think my service is of value. Again, keeping it something concise like this,
Yeah.
and advising them on setting up the meds. But the other piece is I often become a referee. Say a son or a daughter doesn't think that mom or dad should be on a certain medication, and they sort of butt heads, and I can give some experience as to whether I think it's a valid try, or if I've seen some issues with it.
Oh, I wish you'd been there when my father was. I think he was dying in the hospital, and he was going through a very tough time. He was on the breathing tube, whatever. And the nurse or they came to me, and the doctor, and they said, "What? Your father's going through too hard a time in the afternoon. What is he taking?" And I told them what I thought it was. Ooh, the day gets serious. Where's he getting this? Who's prescribing this?
Right.
I don't know what happened after that, but I think he was detoxing off of this. The man was his whole body didn't know anything different.
Right.
God, it's scary.
And it's true. I think on every single client, or 9 out of 10 clients that I have, when I'm doing an assessment of their medications and over-the-counter things, there are certainly 1 or maybe 2 things that they don't even tell their doctor about. Now, it might be melatonin for sleep, which is over-the-counter, but it can interact with other medications. And so certain supplements they just don't think are important enough to mention to the doctor. So.
It is important. I've got a son, and I think I have raised him. He just recently had surgery. I said, be very upfront about what you're doing. This
Right.
generation, if it's going to take in some pot, don't do it before surgery. Don't do anything like that. Which brings up the subject. What do you think of medical marijuana, or any of it?
I just wrote an article. I think it was printed a week or 2 ago for the Grafton News about that.
I missed that one. Okay.
I should have brought it in for you. But anyway, I do in fact think there's validity to it. I'm a proponent of medical marijuana. Not so much recreational. That's a whole different story in my book. But for people that can't, they're in pain. So cancer patients, they've found this helps autistic patients and a number of others, that if they can't tolerate traditional medications, or if they have to go to a high dose of opioids, and things like that, I think there's a good possibility they could get help from that. And again, you have to be careful from a control standpoint that you don't leave it around. And it's also pilferable, like many medications. And unfortunately, almost all the seniors that I've dealt with in their apartments or their homes, they have a shoebox of old medications up in the closet that are 10 years old, and it's just important to get rid of that kind of stuff and not leave it around.
Best way to get rid of it is not down the toilet, right?
Correct.
Okay, because that can get into our water system.
Right.
I just learned that.
Yeah, Twice a year at the local police stations, the DEA funds a drug take back, and they'll take everything back, syringes as well, sharps. And yeah, it's definitely not a good idea to put it down the door.
We're talking with Daniel Finn, and a lot of you may remember Finn's Pharmacy over in South Grafton. His dad was the founder of this, and Dan was the former owner and pharmacist. He also is running the CEO of Finn RX LLC. He's consulting with people, and he will come to where they're at, sit down, talk with them about their medication, and especially if you're like a boomer or a Gen X or whatever, you've got parents who are, up there in age, and you're a little concerned about what they're taking. I wish he was been there when my father was around, but sit down and you're like a buffer. You can give a good.
Well, it's another pair of professional eyes and with experience, but you're right. I often sit down in the living room or in a kitchen or something with folks and encourage their son or daughter to get involved, to understand these things. But in many, many cases, we're able together to simplify and reduce medications.
Problem is, what if the parent doesn't want, I've been there, to cooperate? That's the tough part.
It is difficult, but it's just about communication between the caregiver, the parents, and the nurse or doctor to encourage them to try something different or make a change. And a lot of times it's not even discontinuing a medication. It's reducing the dosage, because as we get older, we don't metabolize things as well. And if someone's been on a medication for 10 years, just continue getting refills as opposed to being reassessed for the need for that particular strain.
Or they start taking more of it, thinking, unfortunately, then you become addicted.
Right, and more is not better.
What happens are you like a mandated reporter, Daniel? Did if you notice something going on that, oops, no one's listening to me, can you report it?
I'm not mandated to. I can, but, again, it's just communicating with the doctor, whoever's involved in prescribing.
Yeah.
I don't want to go over their heads,
No.
but they're all generally pretty receptive to, because they're so busy as well, and they have to see a patient every 15 minutes perhaps or whatever.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah, right.
How long have you been doing the consulting?
A couple of years now.
So you left Finn's in when now? When did you shut it down?
1998, we sold to a large chain, and I worked for them for 6 years.
Okay.
And then for 12 years after that, I went to work for Target in Millbury and managed that store.
So you were over at Target, and I never even saw you there.
Yep.
You were the CEO of that one.
I was the manager of the Target pharmacy. Now, actually, CVS bought the Target pharmacy, so within the big box of Target, it's a CVS.
It's
store.
a different experience, right, than having your own, running your own.
Right, and there are pluses and minuses. I mean, a week's vacation was kind of a plus, as opposed to 7 days a week, or taking 3 days off and taking a day to unwind, relaxing for a day, and then feeling guilty for a day, and so it became part of your daily life. So that, and a 401k and things like that, as opposed to waiting till the end of the year to see if any money was left over.
Can they reach you 24/7, Dan?
Oh yes.
They
can.
can.
If they contract with me too.
You don't mind being waked up at
No.
2 in the morning.
No, I'm used to. I haven't had that happen. Occasionally, I'll get a call on a Sunday, from someone that's trying to decide what cough syrup to take. Say, for instance, they're diabetic or whatever. But most people are pretty thoughtful about interrupting, and they're generally not those kind of crises,
Do you ever go? Well, you go into retirement homes and that type of thing. Do you also go over to the big hospitals and talk with the patients there?
No, I don't get too involved in the hospitals. I think there's enough care there, and it's when they get discharged.
They come home.
And then also when folks, if they leave, say, independent assisted, or when they go into skilled nursing, a nursing home, I also sort of back off, because they've got plenty of people overseeing them and regulations and things that...
A lot of people, when they're discharged, they feel lost. They're like, that's when I think, right? Some of the accidents happen.
Yeah, well, in fact, they're happy to get out, but then they're going to have some typically handwritten notes to what to do, and a VNA nurse will come in generally if it's a complicated situation, and they're very helpful and very good. But
do you work together with them?
I have, but because they're funded by Medicare, Medicaid, they can stop maybe a second visit, but when I contract with somebody or have a...
Yours is unlimited, right?
Well, yeah, it's 6 months or a year, and I can keep track of their situation.
That's fantastic. Dan, how again can they get in touch with you?
at my phone number is 508-887-6262, and my email, danfinnrx@gmail.com. And that's actually also in the Grafton News at the end of my article as a contact.
Every Thursday that comes out. You know what? You can go down 140, go to Cumberland Farms, right before the library and the train tracks. And you can go in there on Thursday, I know, and pick up the Grafton News. I missed the one about the marijuana one, I think. But you do it every week, right?
I do. I may have to cut back to every couple of weeks or so, just because I'm getting so busy with some of the
How did
other-
they get you to do that? How did they find... where do you find the time?
Well, I had been doing it actually for a couple of the independent communities and in their brochures, and then I said, maybe I can expand and get some more exposure with the Grafton News. And Richard Price, who was the editor, said, hey, he thought it was a good idea and good information for people to have.
Excellent. Not just that, that's great, but there's so many other newspapers you could... how about the Blackstone Valley Express?
Perhaps.
Dan, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
And look for his card right downstairs at the library and here in Upton, and get in touch with him. If you've got questions, maybe you have a parent who has a lot of things to think about their medications. There's confusion going on. Like I've said before, I wish Dan had been around when my father was trying to juggle my mother's. I don't know how he did it. Thanks, Dan, for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time on
Yep.
Be My Guest.